So today we're going to talk about the third project in motion graphics, Action Verb. So far you've learned how to do things like animate text, animate logos, and things like that in After Effects. Animations like this are going to be one of the more powerful tools and one of the more used tools that you will have when you are working with After Effects professionally. Things like flat graphics, text that would be normally just static in any other sort of design can be brought to life and can be moved around the screen, dissolved, things like that, in ways that will really make for an interesting composition. So let's get to the lesson sheet here. And in this project, we're going to take what we've learned so far and really find out what we can do with those effects and presets, the transform tools, and the other parts of After Effects that we have at our disposal. To take a verb from the list below here and create an animation of what that verb does. So these are the verbs to consider. Words like impignorate, carbunculate, nathanize, deterge, surfle, nemen. These are going to be all interesting verbs that have maybe fallen out of popular common use in the English language and are, in my opinion, due for being brought back in. So using the transform tools, effects, and presets, the 3 easy steps of this project, we are going to, first off, find out what one of these verbs means, then figure out a good typeface for this verb, making the fonts like Myriad Pro are probably not the answer, the default font for Adobe, and make a new rendering. We're going to consider things like the size, color, and weight of the text as well. And once we have our word up and moving, we are going to then render it to create an MP4 file and upload this and your AEP file to your shared drive using the naming convention here, name, action, verb, replacing your name with your name, of course. So let's start. We're going to create a 30-second composition. So go ahead and minimize that. Now I'm going to start by I'm going to get into After Effects and go ahead and click New Composition. I'm going to title this, might as well just title this fill _ action verb right off the bat. And you can see here, the thing that I want to make sure, first off, this is going to be something like HD here. 1920 by 1080 is about what our screen in the classroom is going to be able to use. So I'm just going to leave this. And duration is the other thing I want to make sure of. So down here I have the duration. And I want to make sure that this says 30, at least the 30, the semicolon, and then 0. So we have a 30-second composition. And I'm going to hit OK. And I've started my composition. I'm going to go ahead and save this at this point. Go to Desktop. And I'm going to call this, again, fill _ action verb.aep. And throughout this, I'm going to go ahead and try to save just in case I get to a point when I have maybe added something that I really don't like, or I've gone so far that I want to go back to something. I might be able to, I can then go up here at any time and hit revert if I have made some error that I want to get rid of. So the word that I have chosen, I'm going to go ahead and let's change this to white so we can see it on the black background. It's over here next to the character. I'm going to go up to the text tool, Control T, and I am going to click out here in the middle, and my word is lachrymate, L-A-C-H-R-Y-M-A-T-E, which means to weep. I'm going to click away from this to set my text. And I want to size this up. I'll size this up here by holding Shift, whoop, not caps lock, holding Shift. And one of the things that I may change is the little handle here. If I want my anchor point, which is this, to, so for instance, if I now click, let's say I click here. Oh, come on. There we go. Maybe I want this to, I prefer for this to be anchored in the center, so I'm going to actually go up to Layer. We go to Transform. I'm going to go to Center Anchor Point in Layer Content. And we'll see that this little anchor point moves straight into the middle. Now I can size this down, size this up by pressing and holding Shift. If I don't press and hold Shift, it just moves back and forth like that. But to maintain the aspect, I will do Shift. And I'm going to put my word, let's say, right here for now. I may also want to choose, looks like I started in Times New Roman. And I feel like Lacrimate is going to be maybe a more of a, use Vivaldi here, more of a script kind of font. Of course, just like any Adobe program, we have all of the Adobe fonts. If you've downloaded your own font from Adobe, so for instance, maybe I wanted to use Cheap Pine. I don't think Cheap Pine will quite make this look like crying. All right, let's go back to Vivaldi. So I have this ridiculous scripty font that is going to be my word. Click away from this and maybe size this up a little bit. There we go. So the first thing I might want to think about is over here we have the effects and presets on the right. And really in this project, I want to explore what is available to me in here. The first one I might want to go to is animation presets up at the top here and text. And thinking about things like maybe I want to animate out, and I'm going to say raining characters out here. And each of these has maybe 20, 30 effect animations that we can add. Some others in here, blur, fade in, foggy might work. And thinking about what this word means, I'm going to go with, let's go raining characters. See if there's an N. Click down here and raining characters in. Another way that I could do this, of course, would be to say rain. You'll see that I have grain also matches because Grain. But we have things like rainfall, bullet train, raining characters in, raining characters out. I could say crying and see what comes up. Looks like we got green crystals. That could be interesting, but maybe not for Lacrimate. So let's go to raining characters in. And I'm going to click and drag this over and put this on here. And let's just see what Lacrimate looks like now. So that's pretty cool. But we have, it's about 3 seconds of our 30 seconds that we need. So let's do more. Let's see what else we can make happen with this. One thing you may consider doing is possibly putting, it's not required that you have a background image, but you might want to put, for instance, maybe a background image. So I could take this eyeball here, my desktop, drag it back in. I'm going to put it on the timeline. You can see eyeball.jpg. I'm going to drag it under so I can still see my word. And it looks like this word might need to get changed in color. Whoops. If you double click out it like that, you're going to need to go back to the project here. And I'm going to go back to my double click on your composition to get back. Well, first off, this image is huge, so I am going to fit it to the width, layer, transform, fit to comp width. We'll see that now we have a little bit more to work with here. Click back onto the layer for Lacrimate. Grab the text tool, select my text. I'm going to change my text to maybe a deep blue, let's say. And click OK. Click away to see what it looks like, and it looks like that is going to be good. So the next thing that I might want to do, let's see where we're at with this. This looks like raining characters in. And that might work, but I might change this. So I'm going to go ahead and take the effect off. If we have an effect like this and we want to get rid of it, you can also take the animations down here, text, and I could hide this. So I just poke the little eyeball next to my animation. Whoops, wrong one. Poke the eyeball next to the animation. And it's animator 1 in this case. And we'll see that now that disappears. So I'm not going to get rid of this yet. I might in a minute, but in the meantime, I am going to go through here and try something else. I'm going to manually make this maybe look like, this kind of is starting to remind me of like a teardrop here. So I might transform this, might rotate this text, and then go ahead and see, whoops, what I can do with this to make it look more like crying. So I'm going to go up here, and this is the rotation tool, W. And with this, I can grab this, and if I can grab my text. If I hold the Shift key, we'll see that it goes to 0, 45, 90. And since that looks kind of like a teardrop, I'm gonna do something like that. And click back over here to get my selection tool again. And maybe I want this to fall, look like it's falling. Let's say that. So at this point, I might just go ahead and get rid of this particular animation. To do that, Control Z to get back. I'm going to select this animation and push the delete key to delete it. And I'm going to go to, if we have text up like this in the layer, similar word Lacrimate, I could go to the down arrow here, down to transform. And you can see that we have things like anchor point position, scale, rotation, and opacity. So let's make this look like it's falling down like a teardrop. So to start, I'm going to want this maybe right about here. And I'm going to select the stopwatch for position. When I select the stopwatch for position, we'll see that a keyframe, one of these little diamonds, shows up on the timeline next to the position line here. And now if I move the selector here, and I move this down, we'll see first off that any movement automatically starts a new little diamond there, a new little keyframe. Command Z to get back. I'm going to drag this. Pressing and holding Shift, I can make it move in exact gridded lines. So I'm going to press and hold Shift. I'm going to make this maybe disappear off the screen. See, if I go backwards, it's going to do exactly that. All right, now let's drag this back. And if we hit the space bar, we see that it can very slowly drop down like a tear. All right, so Let's do more. All right. We have about 18 seconds here. Maybe I want this to, if I want this to kind of loop, I could make this fade in here. So I'm going to actually move these and see if they're both selected. If I only have one selected, I can move the distance between them. If I put them closer together, it'll draw out very fast. You can see the preview doesn't render quite as fast. I'm going to take this. I'm going to put this out around the 30-second mark, maybe, or maybe 28 seconds. Let me put this around 18. And I'm going to make this also fade in. So to make this fade in, I'm going to go to opacity. And again, put this back at 0. Click this to get a keyframe, 100%. And I'm going to change this number here, 100%, to 0. I want to hit enter. See that it disappears. And now if I go out to maybe, say, 4 seconds, I can change this back to 100. And we should have it fade in and then fall. So let's see what this looks like. Oops. So we fade in. And that's a little bit too much time. Let's add some more stuff to this. So what I might do in this case, because a single teardrop is not weeping. Let's say I might take this back like that. And let's go ahead and copy this. So I'm going to Control C or Command C if you're on a Mac, and Command or Control V. I'm going to copy that. So now I have Lacrimate 2. And you can see it's going to have copied over everything. So if I go in here, see the dots show me that I have events in the transform. And I might move this one over a little bit. In fact, in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete these positions, these opacities. To do this, I'm selecting so they get blue and then delete. And I am going to move my transform over to maybe here. And from here, to make this easier on myself, I'm going to change the opacity back to 100%. Should bring it back. May have to do a little more here. Let's see if I hit spacebar. Yeah, we're still hidden. There we are. So we're going to fade in, but let's see, Lacrimate 1. Whoops. So it looks like Command Z, a couple times here. Looks like what I did was I accidentally moved both of them. So I'm going to copy this again, Command C, Command V to create the Lacrimate 2. I'm going to lock the first one so that it can stay there. And I'm going to go ahead and also click the little lock on the eyeball here. And now I'm only going to be messing with this one. So now we should have one that's going to try to move back. Yeah. There we go. Let's go to Lacrimate 2 again here. I'm going to take these transforms. I'm going to go ahead and delete all the transforms for this, as well as the opacity. And I'm going to change opacity on this one back to 100% so I can see it. And we can see I don't have any keyframes for this one yet. So right now, this one is going to stay where it is. And let's watch. Let's see. This goes down like that. And maybe right about here is where I'm going to go ahead and start my next animation. So with this locked, which is always a good idea, I can go ahead and feel safe that I know I'm only working with this one. Go to 0% here. And as this one fades out, we'll move this back a little bit. As that one fades out, the second one can fade in so that we have motion any time in this. So there. Now, same thing. I'm going to go back to position. And let's have this one start falling at maybe the 14-second mark here. Position. We'll see it marks it again. And then maybe a few seconds in, it can fall down as well. Let's watch this animation. So Lacrimate 1 comes flying in, flies out, right as the second one. That's a little slow. I'm going to maybe move these up a little bit. And let's watch this again. Let's see what we got. There we are. Fades in. That's kind of nice. Fades in as well. And drops. And I might repeat this a few more times. So I'm going to keep that unlocked. Command C. Now I'm going to lock it again. Command V. And you can see it's every time it has these little timelines that go in here. This is the actual video of it. So if I wanted, I could actually even move, go back to maybe this one. I could have this, I could actually have this even move back up, fade back in over, say, here, and then fall and then come back. But I don't really want to lose that initial position. I don't want it to look like it's moving around the screen. So for now, especially with text, I'm just going to keep creating a couple more extra layers here. So I want to know where this one is. You go to Effects, Transform. Take the opacity position. You can see it's way down here. Let's see if we can get that. I'm going to actually zoom out. So Command in the backspace. And it should be the only one that lets me select at the moment. So let's put it maybe right here. It's right between the others. And let's watch this animation. So fades in. I'm going to go Shift and the / to move the preview back into fitting into the page. So that fades in. And that fades in. And then maybe right about here, let's say, I might go ahead and start my opacity stopwatch. Again, remembering that these are locked, so this is safe to do. You can go to 0%. Again, same thing. I'm going to move this out here. Put this at 100%. Make this one fade in a little faster this time. And then start following position, stopwatch, right about there. And position, stopwatch, right about there. So let's watch this. So we see the first one. It's going to be a little faster here. Even a little faster. All right. And we can go ahead and repeat this maybe one last time. Lock the first one. And now another thing that we can do, you go to transform. I could actually use these existing transforms. I can move this and this over, knowing that the last one disappears. See that it disappears right about there. Take my opacities. Same thing. So that now this one would fade in right in the same spot. Now we don't really want this in the same spot, so I'm going to actually click on, I'm going to select my, whoops, you double click, you get the position exactly like that. I'm going to single click on this. I'm going to actually change this position, the keyframe. And I can do that. Looks like it's going to try to make that a new. Let's go ahead and just jump to that position. So over here, we have the little diamond with the two arrows. I'm going to jump to this position, and I'm going to change that position where it is. And then jump to the next position. We can see that I have this now. If I played this right now, go ahead and play this. This one will fade in. And then we go shooting off to the side. So either there's a sudden breeze that started to kick up while this person's crying, or otherwise we do not have that where we want it. Go ahead and jump over to that again. And I'm going to move this, whoops, I'm going to move this over. And what I might even do is, at this point, look at my so X is at 1121.5 and Y is at 1391.4. I might jump back over here and say, okay, 1131.9. So I'll jump to this next one and say, well, let's make this easier. I'm just going to go in here, Command C to copy this number, 1131905. It's a lot of numbers. Command V, 1131905. You can see it bumps it very slightly, and now it's going to drop right where I want it. So now we have a 30-second video where it's going to start like this. Start like that. Start another one. Start another one. And if it looped back around, we would see another one start again. And so on. One of the other things, I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift and the / again to snap back. One of the other things I might want to do is look at some of the other fun animation presets. We'll lock this one. We'll go ahead and unlock the background, the eyeball here. We'll go to Effects and Presets. And with rain, I remember I saw this raining characters in. I also saw something called CC Rainfall. So let's look at what this does. I'm going to click and drag. And one of the other things that After Effects has built into it is going to be some of these animation effects such as rainfall. This is a little subtle. We can only very barely see the rain right now. This may not even render in the video. Back up. And one of the things that we also now have are these new controls. Every one of the effects has different controls like this. And I'm going to change, we have size. I'm going to change the size of this. I'm going to see what maybe a 15 looks like. We can see we get this, it gets a little fuzzier. We can see some more of these raindrops. And that looks a lot more like rain. Now that's a lot of rain. Let's change this back to maybe 3,000. There's 3,000 individual little drops. I may even change the opacity up to maybe 60% since I want to be able to see this. And if I click now, it's going to struggle a little bit because it's rendering. You can see this green line going across here. This is the program actually rendering frame by frame everything it's showing me in real time. And as we go along here, there we go. Other things I could even do, I could, if I wanted, I could have some wind kick up about halfway through maybe. So let's hit pause, spacebar here. About maybe 14 seconds in, I could have the wind go from 0 up to, we go to the eyeball here because it's gonna, I want to see what I'm working with. All right, effects, CC rainfall. There we are. So there's my wind. It's always a good idea when you're working with any of these to make sure you know where your keyframes are. Have that open down here. And I may even actually close this so I'm not tempted to use the effects controls up top. With this too, this is helpful because now I have my project panel. If I were to want to get in and transform, say, just one of these lacrimates, or just the eyeball, you can see just the eyeball, it's a different sized image. If I've done this and I have an effects panel up here, I can't easily get to that, back to the composition by double clicking on it here. All right, so let's put some wind in here. We'll go ahead, I have the wind at 0. Jump back to my marker. And I'm gonna have just a steady breeze just starts blowing. So maybe 100. This might make this a little more interesting. See some rain starting there. Maybe a little more realistic. You can see it's going to kind of frame by frame render everything out. And some of those raindrops are kind of starting to go in different directions just a little bit. And it'll kind of ease back to a regular steady rain. And I'm going to go ahead and save my file while I'm thinking of it here to make sure that I don't lose any of this. Okay. The last thing I want to do if I feel satisfied with this composition is go ahead and render it. So we're going to go to composition. We're going to add to render queue. I'm going to click on add to render queue. Control M is the other way to get to this. In add to render queue, I have the output mode. By default on a Mac, this is going to usually say something like high quality. Wait for it here. The format will say usually QuickTime up here at the top. If it says QuickTime, go ahead and click up here, go to H.264. This is the encoding that MP4 uses, MPEG-4. For now, we're going to go ahead and leave everything else in here. And I'm going to click OK. The last thing is it says output to, not yet specified. I'm going to click here. Wait for it. And on the desktop, I now have my After Effects autosave, action verb, and all the files for it. And I'm going to call this, of course, as I need to make sure that it still fits with the document from earlier. Name, action verb, replacing name with your name. Okay. Fill action verb.mp4. I'm going to click save. I'm going to click render. And we're going to see this starts to do the render here. Now, while this is rendering, one of the things I want to talk about is this AEP file. Let's minimize this. The AEP file, which is vanished in just a second. There we go, actionverb.aep. Needs to be in the same folder as, in this case, desktop, and there's the sound that tells me that it is ready. This action verb and this eyeball need to be in the same folder, in this case, the desktop folder, to work. And that is because this image is only, it's like InDesign, it's only linked to it. It's not actually in the image, or not actually in the file, embedded, as things like Photoshop and Illustrator will do. So that if I were to go in and if I upload this file to the Google Drive, along with my, I'm sure I drag this over to this desktop, actionverb.mp4. If I don't upload this, let's see what happens. I'm just going to delete that. And we're going to see that we get this error, file not found. If we hit OK, it'll still show it, but if I then open this later, this background won't show up. It will just be a black background with rainfall. So always remember when you're uploading the AEP file, Command Z to undo it, and we'll drag it back over here. It should just automatically update. It may not. I may have to relink it right here. Eyeball.jpg. And there we go. Now we've actually relinked it. If you see an error here, you will have to double click, open it up. The other way is if you just close it out and reopen it. After Effects tries to find the file again. And that's going to be about the easiest way for this to do this. So the very last thing I definitely want to do is pause this. So I'm not using too much of the processor. File, save again, just to make sure. Close this, and then double click on this. It's called action verb copy because I have something else already called action verb. And we can see that as this goes, it's going to do everything I needed it to.